everyone. Welcome to the Felicity, Optimist versus Cynic podcast with us, your hosts, Melissa and Fish. This is a Felicity rewatch podcast. We'll watch an episode each week and join you here to talk about it. Just a quick reminder, we tell you every time, but this isn't a spoiler-free podcast, so if you don't want spoilers, this isn't the place to be, but listen to us later if that's the case, because it's still fun. Having said that, I'm Melissa, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Fish. Fish, how are you doing today?
I'm great today. Looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, this was a fun one, wasn't it? We watched episode 9 from season 1 called Thanksgiving. This one originally aired November 24th, 1998, written by Andrea Newman and directed by Danny Liner. And the summary is Felicity's hurt when Noel downplays their friendship to his girlfriend, Hannah, who's visiting for Thanksgiving, but may transfer to New York. Meanwhile, Elena begrudgingly visits her dad, and Ben can't locate his plane ticket. So that's what they wanted to tell us about it up front. And there was so much fun stuff in this episode, Fish. Where do you want to start?
Well, I'm a bit of a sucker for, the Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas type episodes. So I enjoyed this one. I think that they did something that probably is hard to do, which is they gave us a sense of everyone's family situations, as well as, I think, capturing that first Thanksgiving away from home when you really surround yourself with your new family. Mm-hmm. I loved the last scene with the table all set and everyone around just having fun and looking at each other. And I liked that this was how they did the first one, mm-hmm. because it really felt like a sense of new beginning at that table, even though there is sort of the ending between Noel and Hannah. Even that fits into a sense of most of the people around this table are going to be together and friends for quite a while. So I really enjoyed that they were able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed that too. I think you mentioned a good point that they created that balance of like, this is the people that you just met, and then this is what you're coming from. Even though this is sort of a weird place for me to start, this really resonated for me. We get, in the what's happening with the other people of the dorm check-in, we had Lewis give the most heartfelt goodbye to Noel towards the start of the episode. Lewis, we've seen him a little bit here and there, and he's saying goodbye to Noel as if it's the last time he's ever going to see him. And Noel actually says, "Are you leaving for good?" And Lewis is like, "No, just for vacation." And, he's just going away for Thanksgiving. And Noel just says with a totally straight face, "Well, Lewis, I'll see you in 5 days. And it seemed so silly, but it actually really captured how I felt saying goodbye to people, especially freshman year. When you're in college, you say a lot of goodbyes to people. Like, you're constantly going away from school for holidays or for a winter break. And for me, I really felt those moments of loss. And so to see Lewis, his very first time having to do that, just crushed, saying a goodbye that felt like a cinematic goodbye with only, a 5-day gap between the next time he'd seen Noel. It's like, oh, that feels right. But I think it actually sets up this episode really well, because it's like, you do build these bonds and you kind of can't imagine being away from them for 5 days. And yet what we get to see in this episode is the strength of the bonds that have been built. So I appreciated that we saw both sides of it here.
Yeah. And was Lewis, remind me, was he one of the two people who, like, their roommate was going to stab the other one?
I believe so. Yes, okay. I believe so. So I guess somehow that's cleared up. We're now seeing Lewis as just a comedic guy. We've dropped that baggage. I guess at this point, I don't think it's the last time we'll see him either.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember back to my Thanksgivings. So I didn't really have a Thanksgiving away from home until grad school when I was in California and my parents were on the East Coast. And so that was the first time that I had it away. So I didn't have this in college, this group of people who all stayed together. I think it was probably a lot more common among the international students,
Mhm.
both because most don't celebrate Thanksgiving unless you're from Canada and then it's a different time of the year. Um, or and it's hard to get, a ticket home for 4 or 5 days.
Mhm.
So um, but I think it was nice that, Noel had to stay behind, and so Hannah was coming to visit. And I thought it was interesting that Felicity probably would have stayed anyway, given how Julie was feeling. But you could kind of also tell that she really wanted to meet Hannah.
Mhm.
And so the whole Noel and Hannah dynamic throughout this, I thought was just amazingly awkward
Mhm.
in the best possible ways. Um,
They threw us right into that. Well, I
yeah.
mean, the first time we see Hannah, there's that incredibly awkward introduction outside of the elevator where Noel is introducing Hannah and Julie and Felicity all together. And we can get into that, I'm sure, quite a bit in a moment. But then they go immediately back into their room, Hannah and Noel do, and they have this really intense, very short, very abruptly ended makeout session where it was like, oh, we're really into it. No, you know what? We're actually not. This isn't a
Yeah.
thing. Huh. It's
I
just
kind
like,
of I kind of felt like that was the whole trip for them,
yeah.
where they probably both had built up these expectations around we're going to see each other, we've just been lonely and missing each other, and they sort of have all these false starts
Mm-hmm.
where they expect one thing and then meh, doesn't really work out. So, they're like ripping each other's clothes off and they're in bed and they're like, I'm hungry.
Yeah,
You
like
hungry?
this. Yeah. Is this what
It's
we
like,
want?
no, no, not at this moment
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
ever.
there's so much of that in this episode. And I think, when we get those scenes of Noel and Hannah together, I think it's these really like juicy moments of Julie labels it later on in the episode to Felicity. She says, they're probably readjusting. And I actually think that's a really good word to put to almost everybody in this episode. I think Julie's readjusting. I think that Hannah and Noel are certainly readjusting. This feeling of like, by the end of the episode, we know that both Hannah and Noel have had their eye on somebody else. And Hannah says that they haven't really like gone all the way. We don't know really how far it's gone with this other guy, but she certainly has been building a connection, and Noel has as well with Felicity. So like I think they're now at a point where they've got somebody else to compare each other to, and they're trying to make a decision in a new way, right? It's not like, are we right for each other? It's like, are we more right for each other than these other people we have in mind? So it feels a lot like, oh, we want this to be familiar and we've talked about the future and this should be a comfortable thing, but does it work anymore? And they're really actively testing that with each other as we go through.
Yeah, I wrote down comfort as well because I think it's really interesting how they've done Hannah's clothes and makeup in comparison to Felicity and how she interacts with Noel, again, in comparison. She is, she's got her glasses, she has a bit of a life plan, she's wearing very modest clothes, not, hardly any makeup. Um, sort of, I don't know that this was meant to be what they said, but she's not really trying. We've seen her in other shows like Alias, and Jennifer Garner is a beautiful woman.
Mhm.
And in this, she's really not trying to impress Noel at all. And I kind of feel maybe he's not trying to impress her either, because although Felicity's there, and maybe it's just his really bad fashion choices, but that oversized brown shirt was really unfortunate. Um, it was just, oh, no,
It's so
why?
funny because the fashion choices here really make an impact on you. And I'm telling
I
you, I still
do.
couldn't even tell you like what color hair half of them have. So I'm
Oh,
like, it's not details I tend to notice. So it's so funny when you feel like disturbed by them in a deep-seated way. It's like you have these visceral reactions to
I
clothing choices.
do.
Yeah.
Clothing, makeup, hair. Yeah, it's like how people are presenting themselves. And I mean, in that scene with, I think it's most starkly seen in the scene between Hannah and Julie the second time they're in the bathroom, where Julie's crying, and not Julie,
Wait, wait, wait.
where Hannah's crying.
Yeah. Okay.
In the scene with,
Felicity and Hannah. Hannah's crying the second time. Yep. And she
let
gives
me
a
try.
roll of toilet paper, that one.
Yeah, let me try this again.
Yeah.
In that scene with Hannah and Felicity, when they're in the bathroom the second time, and Hannah's crying, and Felicity has on just this really beautiful makeup,
Mhm.
and Hannah's got basically nothing, and she has this sort of blue high cut sweater on.
Mhm.
It's just really obvious who's trying and who's not. And the other thing about Hannah is she is so serious and
Mhm.
adult and trying to see if her and Noel can work out and what are the logistics around that. And Noel is playing with a magic 8 ball,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is what he and Felicity do. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's ready to settle down. She might be more ready to settle down with anyone just in life,
Mhm.
but he's a college sophomore and, moving in together, and that's a big step, or at least being in the same city and continuing to see someone for years and years. It's a lot for him, I think. And he uses certain things like the magic 8 ball to try to break the tension.
Well, I
And
think the
she's just
magic
not
eight
having it.
ball is like it's definitely a symbol of the relationship that he has with each of these women, right? Because the way they interact with it is completely different. I mean, Felicity's totally game for the magic 8 ball, and in fact, she knows things about the magic 8 ball that Noel doesn't even wish he knew. Like it's like, oh, outlook good is a thing. That's how I selected this sweater to pack. And so she's like all in on the magic 8 ball, and then I think that scene with Hannah was really interesting, where not only does she sort of reject the magic 8 ball as a means of having a conversation or making any sort of choice, but she led into that by basically spitting on his most important valued technology. Like she's now a PC person, not a Mac, which is blaspheming in Noel's world. And she says something like, oh, maybe must be a dirty line. And like his face just drops. Like, you're telling me that what I've got in here isn't enough? And you've got a PC now? Even if they are cross platform, most of the titles that they use, like she is just on a different page from him. And you really feel it in that scene. It's all these little subtleties, or it's like, oh, I used to know you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt. She comes in and just drops this bombshell on him that she's bought a PC. And I will say back in the 90s, that was a huge thing. Mac versus PC people, they were just different, and you were one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You did not hang out with sort of the other group. Um, so I think that was accurate. She has changed. She is maturing into, the PC is corporate and, not as creative and flexible. And she calls this Magic 8 ball a toy. But you have to realize it's one thing to use a Magic 8 ball to decide which sweater you're going to take home. It's another thing to use it to find an apartment in a new
Mm-hmm.
city.
Yeah.
So I think that's also part of the comparison here is it's a lot more serious with Hannah, and he's not ready for that. So, you know, it makes a lot of sense, I think, for that early high school to college relationship, and is probably the way that many end, both between high school and college and after college.
Mhm.
So when you have these big life transitions, you really have to build your whole life around being with someone. And that is a big decision to make.
Yeah, it's a huge decision to make. And, she's grappling with the size of choice that Felicity was grappling with at the very beginning of this season. I moved to New York. Should I not be here anymore? Should I move back? And Noel showed up as a totally different person in that time because his feelings with her were new. And so, like, the Noel we saw in that situation was giving her motivational speeches and stuff. And here, he's putting his hand on his forehead. He's doing the thing. I wrote in my notes, Noel's whole system is under attack. Like, he's just so, like, sweating and talking fast and breathless and stressed for this whole episode in a very uncomfortable way. We've seen Noel get excited. This isn't that. Noel is just, his whole body is attacking him. He says, when Hannah and Felicity together, it's like a chemical reaction for him, and he doesn't think that's a normal thing. And Julie's like, yeah, that's to be expected. So it's just kind of interesting to see it all manifest for him in that way. And I love that this episode actually sets up some fun little things that'll happen in the future. Like, Hannah asks him if he's had beets because, he has an allergic reaction to beets. And she's wondering if maybe that has something to do with why he looks so stressed and on edge and uncomfortable. And we'll see more with that in the future. So
I'm excited about that.
I can't wait. Stay tuned for the next episode, folks. But, like, there are just these little things that get set up here. They did a really good job in this episode of setting those little things up for now and calling back to some, because even, like, I noticed in Sean and Ben's apartment, as they were walking out the door, that the disposable camera vending machine is right there, so it's like they're not losing these little details that they've been building.
I still say that is a genius invention, and I think that they used to exist. But oh, poor Sean. He's so, he brags about this party and how great it's going to be, and he doesn't want to admit that he doesn't have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving. And then you've got Ben walking back in on him with his sub sandwiches, his turkey subs, sort of the bachelor Thanksgiving. And I love his sort of stomach growing theory. So eat these, and then your stomach will grow, and then you can eat more. And he hands Ben, which I think those were those old disgusting power bars. They're probably still around. And you eat them, and it's just like a rock in your stomach, and they are really disgusting. So I don't know why he thought that was the way to go, was a protein bar, but he's letting Ben know what he should wear. Make sure he's contempo casual, because if anyone knows fashion, it's Sean.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love their relationship is getting closer, and they have this funny relationship where I think it was the last episode or one of the other ones where Ben is now starting to say, like, you'll get it for the door.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, he walks away from the table toward I think the elevator or the freight elevator. And you're thinking, oh, Ben, you're not going to invite Sean? I mean, he's clearly just sitting there. And then Ben looks back and he's like, so, you coming or not?
Mm-hmm.
They're just starting to really bond and get each other.
Yeah, I'm enjoying those two. I mean, well, first of all, not for nothing, Sean's been using Ben's razor for a good long time now. He comes out, first thing we see from Sean, a face full of shaving cream, and he's like, he goes to Ben like, "Where's your razor?" And Ben's like, "I packed it because it's my razor." And then, by the end of the episode, where we know, like, oh, he's been using this razor the whole time. I mean, Sean just does what he feels like doing. But it is so sad that he's been like feigning popularity this whole time. He's really been talking up this party, it's his brother's party, and then he calls his cousin, and Ben's like, "What is this deal? Like, you made this up." But, it just ends up coming off kind of lonely and sad. And I think, Ben just knowing, I need to bring this guy to the next location with me. I really appreciate that. I think there's a generosity with Ben. And although Sean's not a great advice giver in general, I would say we will find in the show, he advises Ben to go contempo casual and look a little nicer for Thanksgiving dinner. And the moment Julie compliments him on his outfit, Ben's like, yeah. I know. Okay, thank you for the thanks. So it's like one of the very few times in this show where Sean's advice is going to land. So appreciate
Sean.
the moment now, folks. You're not going to get a lot of examples like this moving forward, but we have at least this one.
Well, Ben was looking pretty good in this one. His hair was on point.
Mm-hmm.
He had a leather jacket on, and we could tell when he walked back in that through the elevator. I mean, Julie's giving him the eye. Looks
Mm-hmm.
like maybe something there is starting to heat up again, and it's a good thing that Ben did change because Javier's there.
Ooh.
And I mean, Javier was very clear that he needed to make everything, nice.
Yeah.
Because it was not, and Julie therefore must change
Out of her basketball shirt. Yes.
Yes. And I don't know, maybe I was the only one that heard this and it wasn't supposed to be funny, but when Javier asked for candles,
Mm-hmm.
did everyone else hear condoms?
Yeah. So he has to say, Javier says a few times, like candles, but he says it with a really thick accent. And Julie's just looking at him like, huh? And we've all had those moments where you think you're hearing something else, but you're pretty sure that's not the word they're saying. And you just wait for your brain to catch up with what their mouth said. And Javier finally gets across like candles, and she's, oh, candles. Okay. Gotcha. This reminded me of a moment in college, and I guess I'll try to be careful about how I say this to keep it clean for the folks listening. But I remember in college, there was a class that I took. It was one of those big lecture hall classes. It was something like, I don't know. It was a history class, but we talked a lot about philosophy. I can't remember what the class was called, but anyway, it was one of the bigger classes that I took. With a lot of people in the room and, like sort of theater seating, and you couldn't really see the people in the room very well. And the professor up front asked for people to name some philosophers of the era. And this guy in the back must have raised his hand. I couldn't see him because I was in front of him. And she said, yeah, which one do you want to name? And he said, so, Immanuel Kant is a philosopher, last name spelled Kant, but he said it as if it were spelled Cunt. But that was his voice. Like, that's how he spoke. So he just said the last name. And she was like, excuse me. And then he said it again, just the last name. And she's like, excuse me. And at this point, the unfortunate thing, if you've ever had this situation where everybody else but the two people in the conversation understand exactly what's happening, but the two people in the conversation are really confused. So there was nothing the rest of us could do except let this thing play out. And after he had called her, she thought a bad word a few times, he finally realized what was going on. And he goes, Immanuel. And she was like, right. And honestly, it was so silly because like this is her wheelhouse. So she probably should have known straight away what he was trying to say, but she just didn't. It was just not landing in that moment. And so this scene brought me right back to that moment. And I'm glad it did because I forgot about that one. What a gem. What a gem of a moment. Yeah. I just love those things where it's like everybody in the room understands that you're heading for a collision. There's not a thing you can do about it. That's what this candles situation was. So, or condoms. Who knows what he was saying about Thanksgiving that year?
I know. I always love Javier. He makes everything better. But speaking of someone who was very confused, Ben. Ben got a lot of interesting information all at once.
Ben was so great in this episode.
So poor Ben, his family has forgotten to get him a ticket. He was planning on going home, ready to see the family, and then nope, they just forgot about him. So he comes to Thanksgiving because he's been invited, and he comes in and he gets a lot of information.
And he's a sport about it. He's just rolling with it. He stays patient. He just lets it keep adding up to, it's an equation that doesn't work. Here it is.
Yep. So we have a lot of bathroom scenes in this episode. There's a lot of bathrooms. So yeah. I mean, as if, the first magical kiss between Felicity and Noel wasn't enough, we now get this extended hot version in the men's bathroom, which I'm sure smelled awesome. And poor Ben just kind of walks in and he's like, oh, there's some information. All right. All right. Two people kissing. Interesting. I'm going to smile a little bit and just back out. And then I'm going to walk over and talk to my friends, just keeping this in the back of my mind. There's a new girl here. Wonder who this is. And I think, was it Julie who introduces her?
Felicity does. She's like, this is Bill's girlfriend, Hannah.
Yep. More information.
With, by the way, her hair still all askew from
her hair was amazing.
Aggressive makeout scene we just saw.
Yep. So she's introduced Hannah. All right. We got two people making out. We got a new person. Girlfriend of the guy making out. All right. Sure. And then I think Julie says, and we're going to get a turkey coming with a guy. And he's just like, yep, got it. Okay.
Ben just
heading out.
Ben just keeps going, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Like he just keeps like this. None of this goes together. The thing Julie said didn't make sense. A turkey coming with a guy. Like it sounded so sketchy, but it wasn't really sketchy. It was just a turkey coming with a guy, specifically Javier. So he was, MVP for keeping things going without blowing up everybody's spot.
Yep. He wasn't going to say anything. He was just, he slowly backed out of every situation. He backed out of the bathroom, then he backed away from the girlfriend, and he kept moving towards the elevator. And then, of course, the elevator opens. There's the turkey with the guy and Elena. And he's just like, I'm not going to comment on this. I'm just going to walk into the elevator and get some plates.
Yeah. He God bless him. He just kept it moving. He knew that he was not there to stop everybody's fun.
Nope.
And so he just let it roll. Let's just deal with whatever's going to come next here. We watched that scene a couple times. That was great. Um, even like everything about it, because Felicity just came out of this makeout session. So, we see her with the hair all flustered and discombobulated. And, Julie's like, we need more plates. And Felicity's like, what should we do? It was just at like an 11 where it really needed to be at like a 3. And Ben was like, I'll get some plates. I will get some plates. And then they're having this conversation, and we see Noel walk by very awkwardly, looking back at Felicity, just like, I'm going to keep going here. Nobody noticed me. Oh yeah, that whole thing was all these great moments converged into one. And Ben, thank you for keeping it light and making sure everybody could keep their secrets. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
just keeping his mouth closed, unlike everyone else who, just continue to talk to each other. And so we've got what I thought was really fun also was Felicity wanting to talk to Noel and getting really frustrated with the fact that things were different when his girlfriend's around, which, that it feels uncomfortable when somebody's girlfriend comes back if you've been having a closer relationship with her boyfriend. So it's really awkward.
It's really awkward, and it starts from the very first introduction, right? If we go back to that and then move our way forward with it, like when Hannah and Noel come out of the elevator, Felicity and Julie were going to go in, but they end up stopping right in front of the elevator to have a conversation. And Noel is just like melting down in front of our eyes. And he introduces Julie first, because this is the only non-threatening person in this conversation. And, he makes a big deal out of where she's from. She's from Maine. And then he kind of rolls around to Felicity, but he doesn't know what to say about her. So Felicity introduces herself.
And he forgets her name.
He doesn't remember her name.
He's in such a panic. He does not remember her name.
And then he calls them kids from the dorm. And the look on Carrie Russell's face in this moment, she looks like so disgusted. Just like, who are you right now? You are not my friend. I can't handle you. And so, we see all that go by. She's just clocking it all, just keeping it in mind. She asks Noel for the avocado pit back because she gave him one to watch. And now Noel needs to explain it all to Hannah, just to desensitize. Like, I'm going to, take this thread away. So he's like, oh, okay, you see, she gave me a plant to watch while she was gone, which I would do because I'm an RA. He's like, we don't need this much about the avocado pit. Yeah.
But then I also love that everything starts boiling, kind of simmering down in Felicity. She's a little shocked at first, then she starts getting mad, then she gets more mad, and then there's this wonderful scene where she can't even sleep. She is really pissed, and she keeps trying to go to his door, and at one point she just slaps this post-it on the door that says, "Give me back my pit." She's going to make it all about that. And it was fantastic that she just, her routine's been disrupted, and one of her main sort of supports is taken away, and she's pretty mad about this. And I don't know, I did have an issue with that scene because it's the first time that the music has actually taken me completely out of the scene, because she's rolling around at night, can't get to sleep, and you've got this like upbeat country song playing. And I actually had Melissa stop it because it was so jarring for me. I was like, this cannot be the original song that was in here. So we don't know what song you heard because the music has changed so many times. But the original was by Eagle Eye Cherry, who I loved from the 90s and has a very different feel than what we were hearing. The song was Falling in Love Again. And, they have this sort of great rhythm with that song, and it's still, I mean, it's not an upbeat country song. It
Mhm.
is still something of that time period that would have made sense. And there was a second song towards the end, which wasn't as bad when they were all having dinner together, but it was again, it just felt not Felicity. And
It's funny you
so,
say that. Do you mean the one that was playing while they were all having dinner together in the dorm?
yes.
So that song, okay, so the original airing had Bridge Over Troubled Water by Aretha Franklin. And I went back and listened to that song, and that doesn't feel like the right song for this scene either. So actually for me, we heard Calling the Moon by Dar Williams. And I think for me, that song does work because this was an episode that was meant to be mostly funny. And I like that it had an upbeat button at the end, but like a pensive one. It was a song that had some grounding to it, but still felt upbeat. I think the Aretha Franklin version of Bridge Over Troubled Water is a little too heavy still for what this episode was. So I am glad for the change. Whether or not they landed on the right song, I don't know.
See, but that completely changes that last scene for me because I I actually love the choice of Bridge Over Troubled Water because in general, I do think the show has a bit of melancholy under
Mhm.
all of it. And we have seen a few scenes in this where, Ben's forgotten, Elena and her dad aren't getting along. But what you have at the end of it is a group of friends
Mhm.
who, no matter what is going on, Julie's been raped, Hannah and Noel are breaking up. You've got all of this stuff going on. And that song to me is so moving. I love that song. And I think that would have completely changed that last scene for me.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it would have changed the last scene, but I don't know if it would have matched what I understood of the episode's tone. So it's like maybe neither of them were the right song choice. I think lyrically, Bridge Over Troubled Water makes sense, but I think of it as such a heavy song. And this was an episode where I was largely laughing through the whole thing. Even with the stuff that was
yeah.
like, there were people storylines who were more uncomfortable. There were heavier moments, but the overall episode felt like a balloon. It felt very light to me. And we get that even with how it starts, because we're coming off of two really heavy episodes with dealing with Julie's rape and the aftermath of it. And then the first thing we get in this scene is we're back at Dean and DeLuca. We're on Javier. He's talking about Nono being left outside, and Felicity's like, "Is Nono a dog?" And he's like, "No." And you're like, "What is Nono up to? Just not being allowed inside the house? And who is this Nono?" So like we start that, it's a very bold choice just to decide where you're going to start this episode after two very heavy ones, and to say we're going comedy right
Yeah.
from the outset. So for me, that was the tone of the episode, and it got set right from the beginning.
I mean, I do agree. I think there's a ton of funny moments, but this is something I remember from watching it originally. I didn't ever think of Felicity as just a straight comedy.
Mm-hmm.
No episode was just funny.
Mm-hmm.
It would have these really funny moments that were almost spontaneous,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would have these moments punctuated by music in
Mm-hmm.
particular that really were deep
Mm-hmm.
and, as I said, have that kind of melancholy feeling to it.
Yeah.
And so this just felt very out of place with the new music choices. And I'd like to go back and see the original with all of the original music choices, because I have a feeling that I would have felt a lot more during the episode
Mm-hmm.
had it had those high moments of just spontaneous laughter and then these, you know, more serious moments even of people coming together and being friends with, I don't know, I still think Bridge Over Troubled Water is a brilliant song choice for that. So I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna have to go back and see if I can find it somewhere.
Well, with that said, I guess I'll give a shout out here because on Instagram, we've been finding some really great Felicity fans and people who enjoy the show. And there's one account, Felicity Restoration Project, that's been working on restoring scene by scene, not everything, but like a lot of key scenes. They've been going back and restoring the scenes with original music. And, Instagram's kind of a tough way to catalog it, but you might very well be able to go back and find scenes like this as they were intended. So,
Yeah, I love that account. I don't want to get too far ahead because I think they're already at season 4, but I
yeah.
have listened to a couple of the scenes where the original music was put back in, and I'm hoping, I think I saw somewhere on there that DVDs with all of the original music are going to be available at some point.
Oh, cool.
And I do want to be able to see that because music just makes the biggest difference for me. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
music is really important to the show. And it's funny because, like, Aretha Franklin will be. So, I'm not sure how many Aretha Franklin songs there might have been in the original airings because I'm really familiar with the songs from the DVD set because that's where I've done most of my rewatching from. So, but like in one of my favorite episodes of the show, The Aretha Theory, that they have a whole little bit of dialogue about Aretha Franklin, and it probably lands better if you've been getting Aretha Franklin songs as you go. And it's the same thing with Sarah McLachlan. Sarah McLachlan had a lot of songs in the original airing of the show that were stripped out for the DVD and the streaming versions. And there's a whole bit of dialogue about, for some people, it's a really beloved scene much, much later in the series where Megan has this whole monologue about Sarah McLachlan. And it probably lands better if that is what you've been hearing play, up until that point underpinning the show. But I mean, I think the point is still made to reference those artists, even in dialogue when you haven't had the songs. But that was very much the vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
So
I
since
also
we're
want to go back to another really awkward moment. So, as things are coming to like a boiling point for the Hannah, Felicity, Noel dynamic, you're right. There's more than one bathroom scene where there's like kind of the stripping away of the stuff on their faces, like they're taking off the masks, I guess you could say, sort of, and they're just kind of dealing with each other in their raw state. Noel's trying to confirm Thanksgiving plans with Hannah, and Julie invites them to have dinner at the dorm, and Noel's like, oh, I can't handle this. And he has this awesome scene where Ye Waverly Inn gets dropped like 7 times. He's like, no, we're going to Ye Waverly Inn. And Hannah's like, the Waverly Inn. You're like, no, Ye Waverly Inn. Like, I've been having dreams about it. We have to get out of here. Like, you can just see him about to spontaneously combust because it's looking more and more like they're about to get roped into doing Thanksgiving with the group. And Noel's like, I can't handle it. I must get out of situation. Ye Waverly Inn. And I absolutely love that scene. I think it just was like a fever pitch moment that he keeps hitting at various points in this episode. And yeah, Noel just doesn't have much chill, does he?
He really doesn't. No. And that scene in particular, if you've been watching Saturday Night Live more contemporarily, this is 2022 now. So there's a wonderful Saturday Night Live with sketch with Pete Davidson, who is being a white rapper, and he just keeps going, yee, 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 yee. It's got the yee. And that's all I could think of was like Noel either Pete Davidson being in that scene or Noel being on SNL, just switching the two of them up because, oh man, that was a great scene. That
Yeah.
was really fantastic.
Gotta love it. I think one other one other funny moment, because there are a couple of heavier things to talk about in this episode, but one other funny moment was, turkey number one and turkey number two.
Oh my
And everything
goodness.
that happened around that. Like turkey number one was a turkey with fur. Maybe a turkey, maybe not a turkey. Turkey in
It was not a
quotes
turkey.
with
Not a turkey.
fur
Mm-mm.
in a brown bag.
Mm-hmm.
And Julie's like, well, I got
From
it from
Chinatown.
Chinatown. And Felicity opens up. She's like, ooh, that is definitely not a turkey.
Yeah. That might be also slightly racist, but I would have expected at least like a duck or something like that. I was not expecting the fur
Yeah.
or anything that had fur to still have it on it. But it was a pretty sad bag that was just dropped on the
It was a
table.
large brown paper bag,
It was
which is
not that
not
large.
something anything should be in.
No. I
Yeah.
mean, unless, of course, according to Javier, you're going to cook your turkey in it. And I will say, so I had this wonderful first Thanksgiving away from home in grad school, and there were about 20 people in my graduate program, and most of them were international.
Mhm.
And then I had a roommate that I was living with on campus. And so I did the full Thanksgiving 20-pound turkey, like everything. So for people who need to know, in order to cook a Thanksgiving turkey, you do need an oven
Mhm.
and a turkey.
Mhm.
And these are two things that Julie and Felicity
They
did
were sorely
not
lacking
have.
on both
They
accounts.
really did not. And I just love the scene where Javier's like, all right, you'll just remember this. Put the turkey, in a brown paper bag, put some water in, 350, 3.5 hours, 15-pound turkey, go. So,
You've got to keep that bird moist,
yes, because that
he
is the
says.
main thing with a Thanksgiving turkey. You do. And I always cheat because I just buy the butterball turkeys, which have the butter injected into them, so you
Mhm.
don't have to baste it for
Mhm.
so long. And then I do kind of what Javier says. I put tin foil over the top of it so that it kind of self bastes. And it came out perfectly. So
Hmm.
I was so proud. And I again will try to find a picture, but this is an actual digital picture, unlike the other one I couldn't find.
Mhm.
And it's just me in front of this giant turkey with this big smile on my face because I
Mhm.
was so happy. And then a bunch of people, mostly from Latin America, came over and they did not understand Thanksgiving or what was happening, but they were extremely nice about it and asking all these questions. And we just had a fantastic night. So, this whole episode just reminds me of that. And it was this great. We all really liked each other and spent a lot of time together, and it was fun. And I mean, it was just a great Thanksgiving. So
Aw.
I am happy that this episode brought that back.
Yeah, I think this episode makes you think about those moments in your life where you were able to connect. Sometimes holiday dinners when you're like reestablishing where you're going to celebrate a holiday, sometimes being in a new place. I don't know, it can create really special moments of connection with new people that you may or may not connect with again, but it does make it like I don't know, it adds like a level of like this is a moment we all shared that you don't necessarily get if you're in an environment that you like take for granted. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. And thank goodness, because Javier's turkey saved the day.
Yes, it did. And it was beautiful. The thing that I find most unrealistic
Mhm.
about this whole episode is that nobody was taking any pictures.
Oh.
Because, I mean, at least Julie was going to be, taking out a camera. Or, I mean, Sean had that whole vending machine. He
That's
could have
true.
brought I mean, this is the perfect moment for the vending machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a missed opportunity for
Hmm.
Sean to get, more traction around his invention. But we had a couple of more serious storylines that evolved here. One that I think was kind of a fully formed one was Elena, or not fully formed, but sort of like self-contained in this episode. So, Elena and her father, we know from a previous episode that Elena has one parent, or one parent who's alive or in her life. And so we get to meet her dad. And there's a lot of tension there, right? Her dad is really focused on the routine that he's built for himself. And that seems really important to him. And Elena doesn't really see how she fits into that picture. And it seems like she tries really hard to get his attention and just can't seem to. What did you think about that whole thing, Fish?
Yeah, I really liked this as well. It seemed like her dad wasn't particularly academically focused, and he was trying to do the best he could. She handed him her paper and he put down the remote and he looked at it and said, "Oh, this is so great." But he doesn't really have anything to say after that. It seems like they don't share a lot of common interests.
Mm-hmm.
We start off that scene and he's talking about this television, which she could not care less about. So I think we see the two of them. It seems like they care about each other. And Elena's just really hurt by the fact that she can't seem to get a connection moving forward with her father, something deeper, or maybe that they had when she was a little kid, because we do hear that he didn't even know what she was taking in school as a language during
Mm-hmm.
high school. So this has obviously been going on for a while. And, he's got this apartment that's just, nice but comfortable. And she doesn't, yeah, you're right. She just doesn't fit in there, even though both of them, I think, were trying, and he was trying to invite her into Evie's place, with his friends, and she just wants to stay alone. But I think he knows it's just going to be kind of awkward
Yeah.
if they do.
Well,
So
and
I really
different
like
things are
that.
important to each of them, right? I mean, Evie, it sounds like Evie is a really important part of his world. And for Elena, she just has completely different things that are important to her. So them having common ground in the right way to share these vacation moments together is, doesn't seem like they'll be able to get there unless they talk about it. And, for Elena, I feel like she's just at a place in this relationship with her father where she's disappointed. She tries really hard to get his attention. She sounds really proud about the academic accomplishment she shares with him. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. Okay, next thing. And, for her, I think she is used to being disappointed in that relationship and she expects more of it. And so it becomes maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's one that's been earned, right? I mean, she's been living this for quite some time. And I don't really know exactly what he wants in this scenario. Maybe he thinks it's enough that she's just there. But, she makes that comment, he's like, yeah, this is how many, you haven't really been coming back to visit me. And she's like, the trains go both ways. You've literally never once seen where I lived. And, I think that hits home for him in that moment. But yeah, I just, they're really far away from being on the same page and they're not going to get there by accident.
No, but I think it's a wonderful step forward that he comes out and has Thanksgiving
Mm-hmm.
with her and her friends. He sees the dorm. I thought that was a very touching moment after what was a very disappointing moment when Elena leaves. And she's packing her stuff up and he's saying, "Well, aren't you at least going to come to dinner? Like you're leaving after dinner." And she's just like, "No, I've got stuff to do and we're not really going to talk anyway."
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that we'll see in the future that things get a little better with the two of them. If they bring him back, but I really did like that he came to Thanksgiving. I don't know how he found out about it. Maybe he just showed up at her dorm to say hi because he knew that she'd be there.
Mhm.
But it was nice to have him around the table with everybody else.
Yeah, and to be welcomed into that group and the montage that we saw, even though you're coming for the music, you're coming straight at them. You're not having it. Nope, nope, nope.
No, I know. I don't like this new music. I'm just gonna go on record, recorded record here. Not fan of
Well,
this
we
music.
talk about having a rant with the Cynic segment, and this was a light rant, but a rant nonetheless. I mean, I feel like a lot of your rants are fashion or, in this case, music related, and we got
Yeah.
both this time.
Yes. Noel's shirt, not acceptable. All of what they did to Jennifer Garner as a beautiful woman, not acceptable.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, music, not acceptable.
Yeah. No,
So we got that's three strikes. Just
three
saying,
strikes.
three
Okay,
strikes.
fair enough.
But I do think we had a great scene with Noel and Hannah.
Mhm.
Um, the two of them, their breakup scene is kind of how I wish any one of my breakups had gone.
Mhm.
This is such a, I mean, it's a sad scene, but at the same time, it's very mature, very, I have somebody over here, you have someone over there. Hannah knows that it's Felicity and
Mhm.
should think she'd have to be blind not to, and deaf at this point.
Mhm.
And they just have this mature conversation where it says, it doesn't feel right and we're just, kind of moving on. And I wrote down best breakup ever because mine usually involve crying, lots of crying, which, Hannah did. And always doing it at awkward times, although I guess Thanksgiving is a pretty awkward time.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I mean, generally they handled it and then they sat down and had a Thanksgiving dinner together.
Yeah.
That is not something that ever would have happened with any of my exes. It's like,
Yeah. Well,
no.
I appreciate it for what it is in this episode. I will say, for those of you listening in who are versed in what happens later in this season, watch this space.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to
This
know.
is a breakup. I mean, you are absolutely right. Like, this is a breakup scene. And they handled it really maturely and with a lot of consideration about what the future was really going to look like. And it wasn't really about them. It was about, is this the future that we both want? And the answer is no, or we're not so sure, or we have these other options that we want to explore. And so I think we are getting to a place of resolution here. And it won't be the last time we see Jennifer Garner in this show, but it's
Yay.
definitely a moment of like, this thing is closing out, like the relationship that started in high school and we've been doing the long distance thing. This is not in this form. This cannot be, so I think there's an acceptance to this here.
Well, and I think it comes back to the fact that it's too much. It's just too much for Noel. I
Mhm.
don't know that it's too much for Hannah. I think had he really been all in and she's ready to settle down and move forward, maybe that would have worked out, even though there is this guy at Northwestern.
Mhm.
But Noel is not mature enough. He's not ready to settle down. He's, you know, kissing other people, and they're his people he's supposed to be an RA for, playing with magic 8 balls. I mean, he's not particularly mature. And then he decides that, the best place to, again, declare his love ish for Felicity is in the middle of a bathroom by just like attacking her face. And
this is one of the things I was thinking about where I was like, is this the hamburger or her face? He just has like this underlying look. I don't know. Maybe we all have completely different opinions on what a good kiss looks like. So for me, the ones that I think of as good aren't the ones that we are getting here. Like there's when I think about because Noel kisses people differently in this show. And so this isn't like the actor and how he kisses always, like he does mix it up. And so when I see him with Felicity in this scene, he looks like there's an urgency or like maybe I almost want to say a desperation for her that really reads in their physical chemistry. And so that's what I see from him. It's like there's not a patience there. He has been patient in terms of the length of time he's been waiting for these things to happen. But then when the moment comes, he's all in like right away. And it really reads to me as like a desperate need for her.
which some of us may think is hot. But I do have a bone to pick with you because
Oh boy.
I know. Once you mentioned that thing about him like eating a hamburger,
Yeah.
I went back and I looked at that first kiss. And while I still think it's really hot, I also kind of see what you're saying. And now it's a bit ruined for me.
Oh
And probably
no.
all the ones going forward will be too, because I did notice in like the first lip lock, yeah, yeah, he does kind of do that. If I can push that image out of my head, I like the passion. I liked it when they like broke apart and then Felicity grabs his head again
Mhm.
and starts kissing him. I think, all of that just like built up tension and passion coming out is really great.
Mhm.
But I do kind of see where you were coming with the whole, is he kind of eating her face?
Why do I do these things? I'm spoiling everybody's fun. Oh,
So for anyone
shame on
else
me.
who thought that that was a hot scene and now it's ruined, it's the melissafish@gmail.com. Feel free to send in an email to
Yeah.
Melissa and let her know.
You know, go ahead and at me. It's fine. I can handle it. It's okay. I mean, I do think that that's part of Noel's story. And I think it was a choice in how Scott Foley played Noel. I think that he's so, because you were talking about it with Hannah as like he doesn't have the maturity. But I think, and that may be true, and I'm not disputing that, but I think from another framing, like he does have an emotional connection with one of these women, and it is not Hannah anymore. And I mean, it might be there to a degree, but if we're talking about like where he feels deeply emotionally connected, it is to Felicity. So I think, maturity, yeah, I don't know that he's fully mature. I also don't know that maturity looks like being in a relationship where you don't feel that there's an emotional connection, where you know that there's this other person you do have one with. So I think he's in a confusing place and he feels like he probably needs to sort that out, because when the two of them are together, his rational thought goes completely out the window and he's just all reaction. And he knows it. He can see it. It's confusing him. He feels really uncomfortable about it. It almost sickens him. Like he's like sweating for the whole episode, so he's feeling it and it can't feel good. And he doesn't love that he's in this place. And he also hasn't been able to step away from it and articulate it. So like to have that conversation with Julie where he's like, oh, this does make sense to you. She's like, yeah, this makes sense to everybody except you. Like it's a really normal thing, but when you're in that space, you have to find a way to, I don't know, decompress or like have a moment to like bring yourself back down to stasis. Like so you can figure out what just happened and what it is you're thinking about something.
So, two things about that. I mean, he definitely has a physical connection with Felicity. I think it's, at least to me, it seems a lot more like lust since he's
Mm,
just met her. And also, he's been in this other relationship with Hannah, and he says, I love her. And she says that she loves him. And I think that that is, a connection that has matured over time and they've grown together and they care about each other. So I wouldn't take anything away from that. But we did see in their initial makeout session that maybe the spark has kind of gone a little bit.
mhm,
And I don't think he's had time to build that type of connection with Felicity. It's just, he's very attracted to her, not just, not just physically, but also her personality, but it's still in the lust realm of things.
mm, okay.
So I don't see that as this kind of cosmic, them coming together, love at first sight sort of thing right now. But maybe
Mhm.
I will change my mind
Well, I
because
think
it's only been eight
emotional
episodes.
connection could be not just like they're really valuable to each other. Like they want, just in the way that like Felicity is really bothered by not being able to go to his room and talk to him. And I think to a degree, Noel wants to be around her. And I think there's certainly lust in there. But also like I think that he has a value for her as a person. And I think when Hannah comes back into town, they're saying the words, but I don't feel that either of them mean them. It's like they're saying them to see if they still sound good. So, like, you can say, I love you and not really have a connection behind it, but you're saying it because you think you should be saying it or because you think that you've done it in the past and you think you should keep it at the status quo. This feels like the Noel Hannah relationship is in a place of like, what should we be doing? Not what do we want to be doing? And I think the fact that they're through this episode trying to assess what it is they want to do is important, and their endpoint is like, oh, we don't want the same things, or we don't want to be together. We actually do want the same thing, and that's not to be together anymore. So it's like I see it as like they're kind of going through the motions of it, trying to see if the spark is still there, and then finding, oh, it's not.
Yeah, I guess I saw it a little bit differently. I mean, if they had come together at first and maybe in that first makeout scene had said, like, I love you, and then started making out, I could have seen that as more going through the motions. But I don't think Jennifer Garner had to say that she loved him at that point. They already said they had other people
Mm-hmm.
and they were breaking up. That was already done.
Mm-hmm.
So her looking at him and saying, I still love you, isn't it wasn't a I'm trying this on to see if it still feels right. They'd already broken up and she's just expressing to him, like, I still have these deep feelings for you, but we're no longer right as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I saw it as, just still having feelings for someone that don't go away immediately,
Mm-hmm.
but they really were off on the physical part, and they were both thinking about other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Noel in his sweaty, um, I mean, he uses a word that we shouldn't be using anymore, but tends to be used more in the US. Um, but it's like an S word.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he says that he, in his own way, is really kind of out of his mind. And
Mm-hmm.
then she's off calling somebody else and checking in with them because that's really what she wants to be doing on
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving, is talking to this other person. So, you can still care about someone a lot and know that you're not right for each other for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so that's why I felt it's almost more heartbreaking because of that, which
Mm-hmm.
is again where I have an issue with the music, because these sort of heartbreaking moments, I just feel them more when they have music that goes along with them
Mhm.
that makes sense. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm curious, actually, I want to throw this to the listeners too. Hannah and Noel and that whole dynamic, what are you seeing from them here? And knowing that some of you may have a lot more future thoughts to roll into your thoughts about this episode, I'd love to know what people think about the Hannah and Noel dynamic, because I think on the surface, they have this relationship that is getting to a heavier place that, is really involving making major life decisions together when they're young. And, there's a lot that's wrapped up into that. And they're trying to have honest conversations here. And I appreciate that. And what do people think about it? Feel free to write in and tell us at the melissafish@gmail.com. We've gotten Felicity and Ben missives. So why not a Hannah and Noel breakdown? Like, we'd love to see it. But I am interested, actually. There's one other person who we haven't really talked about very much, Julie.
Hmm.
One of the things that I like about what this show does is that we just had 2 episodes. Well, really one full episode and like the hint of it at the end of the episode prior, where we deal with Julie being sexually assaulted and, going through the state rape experience. And they tried to tell us the story of the aftermath of the rape in one episode with, a few minutes of the previous episode as well to cover it. And it's a lot, it's a big topic to take on. And they tried to put something of an end point on it so they could move into other storylines. But one of the things that I do appreciate is that they didn't then just say, oh, this never happened anymore. Like, they're not saying we're pretending that this isn't part of her story for the sake of the other storylines. They're saying this is part of her journey, and we're going to keep referencing it and acknowledging it. And she is still dealing with this, but we are moving forward. And so we're going to see in this episode that she's still dealing with it. She's trying to figure out, how and when and if she wants to tell her parents about it. She wants them to be supportive, but she's worried that the relationship with them is going to change when they know that she was raped. She's trying to, decide if she wants to avoid that conversation or go into it. So she spends Thanksgiving in the dorm so that she can put it off a little bit longer. And this is a storyline that's going to keep impacting her, not just this season, but in the future. So I appreciate that the show did that, and that they're still showing that, Felicity is trying to figure out how to be for Julie at this time. The other characters don't really talk about it with her at all, but Felicity is that really close level of connection, and she's trying to figure out how to show up for Julie without really having the tools to know it.
Yeah, it's very nice of her to stay and have this Thanksgiving dinner and attempt to cook sweet potatoes in a microwave together with Julie. And I think, this is Felicity's strong suit, right? Is just being there for people. And Julie did say, I do think it's going to be lonely. So Felicity hears that and decides to stay, and it ends up being a great decision considering everybody else ends up there for different reasons. And I one of the, I think, most heartbreaking moments in this whole episode was during the end of when they're having the dinner scene together, and you see Elena and her dad hugging in the hallway. And earlier, Julie had said, I don't want to tell my parents about this because they're going to look at me differently. And then later she says, I just want them to come in here and put their arms around me and say nothing. She just wants that comfort and protection and love of her family. And what you see in that scene between Elena and her dad is they're down the hallway, and then it's shot behind Julie,
Mhm.
and you see her looking down the hallway and seeing Elena having this moment with her dad that she basically described as exactly what she wanted from her parents.
Mhm.
And besides the two of them, she's the only one in that shot. And I just say again, I feel like that would have been punctuated better by Bridge Over Troubled Waters than a more upbeat song.
Mhm.
But it really was a great shot.
Well, I think we were seeing two different tones of story play out at that point, right? Because and I think the camera work there was beautiful and it really punctuated that storyline. It was this a moment of resolution for Elena and her father and a moment of coming together. And Julie was like, that's what I wanted. That's what I was looking for. And I think, with that final dinner scene, I think that what you were seeing was the breakup at the table and that moment with Julie at the table. But what I was seeing, and this actually leads into my note from an optimist, the power of new community. For anybody who's, when you grow up and you have holidays with family or whoever you have holidays with, there may be a consistency around how you have holidays or what they look like for you as you're growing up. And then as you become an adult, things shift. You're living in new places. Maybe you're in college. Maybe I lived abroad for quite some time. You had grad school. We start to live different lives as adults. You're making choices about what your future is going to look like. And it doesn't always make it easy or possible, or just things change to go back to the type of holiday you used to have when you were younger. And so you start to, for some of us, that means having to reform what your holidays look like. And, Thanksgiving could be one of them, right? And I think for Thanksgiving, if you find yourself in a new environment, it is the sort of holiday where you can embrace the new community around you and realize that they are now a new family for you. You've got many families now, hopefully, not everybody does, but you've got this something new that's built. And I think the feeling of having a new community around you that you're part of, it almost sometimes feels like a chosen community that you're in, because there was agency in how you got there to begin with. And I like the feeling of that. I've had some really special Thanksgivings with like new people and like groups of people that I've purposely put myself in. And there's like an empowerment about that. And there's something about a holiday with people that it's like, we all made this choice where it's like, you can't take it for granted. Like you made the decision to be in this room with these people having this meal. And so it feels like ownership, like a different level of ownership for everybody. So I felt that in that room, the things that they all appreciated about each other or were learning it. And they're new friends, but they're still friends. They are a community. They're there for each other in this moment. And this moment is all we have. So it's, for me, I really appreciate that, the power of new community and how you feel it in that scene. So I think that's why for me, I wanted that happier song, because I'm thinking more about where are they headed, and like wherever they came from, they're in this room together right now.
And that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, I saw a lot in the way of new beginnings around the table. As I
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, it's that this group is going to be together and strong together
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. And, this is the time for new community. I mean, there's not another holiday out there celebrating when, the people from England came over and shared their blankets and bullets with, indigenous people here in America. Maybe not the best holiday,
Mm-hmm.
but
Fair
we still
enough.
celebrate it. We still
Yeah.
celebrate it. Yeah. We need
Yeah.
we need a new A new holiday. I like how people call it Friendsgiving.
Mhm.
I enjoy that.
Well, I think it's Friendsgiving if it's with your friends, right? I mean,
Well, yes.
I think the idea of Thanksgiving holds up even under a reframing. Like if you can get there, it's like, well, it is, what are we thankful for today? And I think you could move forward with a new interpretation of the word if you lose the history behind it and have it still be something valuable. And that's kind of how I choose to look at it in terms of how I've celebrated in the past of like, well, if we're taking this as a day of gratitude, I think the idea is a good one, not any day, not just specifically this one day of the year. So it's fraught, that holiday.
Like many others,
Mm-hmm.
yes. But it is nice to come together and say what you're thankful for and eat a lot of turkey.
That's for sure. Well, actually, Fish, what's your favorite Thanksgiving food?
So, my family's got some very interesting and eclectic things that we bring together. But I guess the one that we always have and have always had, I think it's an Eastern Shore of Maryland thing where a lot of my family's from, but it is a pineapple bread pudding.
What? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Huh.
really good. I mean, it's like bread pudding, but filled with pineapple. So that's one that just always reminds me of home, and it's really easy to cook. I do love cooking, so that one, make a nice little casserole dish out of that. How about you?
Well, I don't love cooking, so I generally don't bother. But if you were saying, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food? I'm going to say anything in the yams, like the candied yams or sweet
Ah,
potato family.
are you
Um,
a marshmallow or not a marshmallow person?
well, hey, I'll do anything. Any version of that dish is a-okay with me. Growing up, we did like there was no marshmallows and it was actually yams with a ton of sherry and brown sugar. Um,
That's good.
it was really good. But really anything in that family is fine with me. And also pumpkin pie. So I think you're getting a sense of my priorities. I have a
Squash.
sweet tooth and that's what I
Yam
want.
squash.
Yeah. Yeah.
I Yeah.
That's the ticket for me. I could do without a lot of the other dishes, actually. If you gave me a whole plate full of that, I'd be fine. Uh, listeners, what's your favorite food for Thanksgiving? Or if you have a similar holiday wherever you're from, what do you like to eat? I'd be really curious to know what people are celebrating around the world and what they eat. Just food for thought.
Nice
Oh
pun.
boy.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I'm interested to dive into our what Sally said, what Sally meant segment. You had a lot of work to do last time to pull together what Sally meant on the back of a really heavy episode. This was a very different episode. We did get a tape from Sally, and you know what she really meant to say.
hmm I do.
So let's go into it. So she says, Dear Felicity, I planned on spending Thanksgiving by myself this year.
I had it all planned out. A microwave dinner, a couple bottles of red wine, and an action movie marathon. Bloodsport, Predator, and of course, Commando.
Wow. Okay. I thought it would be too hard to try and celebrate the holiday with new friends in this new place.
And you know how much I love the final island scene in Commando? Schwarzenegger rocks up 74 kills, two throat slits, 51 people shot, one person stabbed, two people stabbed by circular blades, five people blown up by grenades, five people blown up by rocket launchers, seven people blown up by planted explosives, and one person impaled. This man should run for political office. I'd vote for him.
But then Emmett and a bunch of friends from work showed up at my place with all this food.
It would have been nice to have some advance notice, so I didn't answer the door in my old bathrobe with the large hole in the butt and that white stuff on my face from bleaching my mustache and the avocado face mask and a shower cap.
It's incredible, really. 1 minute you're standing in a new place with nothing but your suitcase.
It was really sweet of them, though. They brought a huge turkey, sausage stuffing, cream spinach, homemade gravy, a wedge salad with lots of bacon, and pumpkin pie with a crisp butter crust covered in whipped cream and ice cream. If only I wasn't a vegan.
And then you look around and suddenly you realize you're surrounded by family.
But we ended up having a great night anyway. Emmett actually tried my avocado face mask after everyone else left. He added a few movies from his own list, and I fell asleep in his arms, with a soothing voice whispering in my ear, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker."
Wow.
Yeah,
Holy smokes.
how she likes to do it.
Sally is a woman with many facets. She's a
Mhm.
multifaceted woman.
She
Um,
is.
I also
Action
like the,
movies.
yeah, I also like the theme around avocados that you pulled from here.
Yeah, I mean that's where she is, right? She's gotta love the avocado face mask, and I don't know, maybe using some of it for chips, considering she couldn't eat anything that
Yeah,
people brought with them.
gosh.
She's a
Well,
vegan.
yeah. And, Felicity planted this idea about with the avocado pit. And
Hmm.
so she saw avocado and she's like, oh, how can I
Yeah,
get some of that? So,
absolutely. I mean, she's probably the one that gave Felicity the idea.
mm, very true. Gosh, we have a whole backstory developing here. I love it. This is
Mm.
good stuff. So, one thing I wanted to say, because I was kind of looking through our listener feedback, and although nobody specifically touched on this episode, I thought in the spirit of an episode like this, and we're talking about new friends and new community, and we have been forming new community through this podcast and starting to meet some amazing people out there who enjoy the show or who regularly rewatch it. So I thought I'd highlight one of them today. We heard, so this is the after you listen to this tape, you have to erase it segment. And we heard from Marcella, and she said, Felicity is like my inspiration for the day. I'm a dancer, and every morning I wake up at 5 a.m. and do a whole workout while I watch a few of my favorite episodes of Felicity. It's such a criminally underrated show. So, just one of the cool people that we're meeting here. I don't know about 5 a.m. wake ups. That's not my speed. I'll tell you that, Marcella, but it's so fun that we get to know how you experience Felicity and how Felicity is still kept alive for you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to give you kudos on the 5 a.m. I remember those from college and our two-a-day workouts, and that's not a fun time to be up in the morning, but that shows some real commitment to dance, and I love that Felicity's there, just making sure you're up and ready and cheering you on. So
I'm feeling
love to hear
motivated.
about that.
And Carrie Russell was a dancer. So I think that's a good person to have on your screen as that extra layer of inspiration.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, having said that, and hey, having said that, we would love to hear from anybody who's listening or who's a fan of the show. It's been really fun to uncover. Like, it seems like there are a lot of introverts out there still watching Felicity, and we're all finding each other when we talk about it online or in podcasts. So we'd love to meet you, as well. So feel free to write to us, send us your feedback, tell us, your experience with the show. If you're an artist and you want to share Felicity fan art, we'd love to hear from you about that too. So you can write us at themelissafish@gmail.com. That's Melissa with one L, two S's, themelissafish@gmail.com. And you can also find us on Instagram. There's a lot of cool people that we're meeting on Instagram at Felicity Podcast. And if you're interested in knowing when these episodes drop, our podcast episodes drop, we send out a newsletter every time we have published a new episode. So you can find a link to sign up for that in the show notes, wherever you're listening to this now. But Fish, what did you think about this episode overall? Let's rate the episode.
Yes. So, as I said earlier, I really like that they were able to bring in both family and friends, and it brought back a few memories of my own. Do have to mark it down for the music, although that's not really their fault, I guess, as an overall episode, at least not the original creator's fault. So, but I have to rate what I actually saw. But I still really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it, a solid 7 out of 10 gloves.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, as you all know, I rate in a different unit of measurement each week. And this time, there were a lot of options for this episode. I had an embarrassment of units of measurement options to deal with here. And I went with Ye Waverly Inns.
Ah, yes.
I was really torn about it, but that's the funniest part of the episode for me, of many funny parts. So I'm going for it. I actually gave this one a 9 out of 10, Ye Waverly Inns.
Okay.
I think they did a lot of really good things in this episode. The music, especially the last song, landed better for me than it did for you, which helps. But it's also not a 10. I have kind of an idea where my 10s are, or at least a couple. So I know that this isn't quite there for me in terms of, the overall how the story they were telling, how cleanly they got there. But for me, it was a really strong one. And I do feel like this is an episode people think about and talk about a lot as an episode that they like. And so I think there's a belovedness about this first Thanksgiving episode for the community that watches Felicity. So I went there, but I have to tell you, the next episode, I am so excited.
Oh.
It's called Finally, and we are finally getting there. And if you were to say to me, Melissa, what is your favorite episode of Felicity? There's 2 episodes that come to my mind, and this is one of them, Finally. So we'll see. I mean, we're watching it in so much detail now and talking about it in such depth. I hope that it'll live up to what it is in my mind to go back to it. But just know, everybody, that on the very next episode, I am going to lose it. Consider yourself warned. I am way too pumped up about this, and it may come off as just embarrassing and something I'll regret later, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, just have to let you all know she has an allergic reaction to beets, and she may be eating some ahead of this and just become very excited. So, yeah.
Gosh.
It's going to be great.
For those of you who like the episode Finally, we're going to do it some justice next time. So just get yourself ready. Get your beets, get your smart powder. Maybe get your M&Ms. We'll see how it goes. But that's everything that I wanted to say for this one today. I think we covered a lot of ground with it. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about Thanksgiving, Fish?
No, I think that we covered everything that I had written down. I did love this one. But I don't know, I guess maybe I do like the darker episodes more, just because they kind of hit me more emotionally, and I do think this one would have too, had they changed up the soundtrack, because there were, a lot of moving moments in it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. It's not a darker one.
Well, I have no idea what happens, but I mean, you've certainly hyped it up. So now I'm hoping it lives up to my expectations, which are very high.
Well, I'm glad to put them there squarely, in the high expectations range. It's not a darker episode of Felicity. I do like the dark. I like the fact that the show Felicity has the dark and the light. I like the fact that they've got the serious storylines and the really heavy exploration of relationships, but also the comedy. I find comedy funnier when it's embedded in that. Next episode, I think, is more just like straight up comedy, but we'll see how it goes for you. Your mileage may vary if you like the heavier episodes more, but goodness, it's a masterclass. Yeah. So I guess all the things we wanted to cover today. Until next time, fish, don't hook up with Ben while I'm gone.
I'm a fish.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.